Okay, so in this video, we are going to be answering a commonly asked question about what to do when an item says it's been delivered by the post office, but the buyer has not received it. So this is actually a buyer asking the question. However, this response is going to be relevant to whether you're the buyer on the end of the scenario or the seller. So tracking says delivered, but item hasn't arrived, been a week. So here's what they say. So the tracking on the item says that it has been delivered for over a week. I've been checking with the mailroom that holds the mail until you sign for it and they have not received it. I've been communicating with the seller and they said to keep waiting. I'm not sure what to do now. It's not a large sum of money by any means, but it's hurting me financially if I pay for something and I don't receive it, especially now that it's out of seller, eBay, PayPal's hands. So I'm not sure why it's out of eBay and PayPal's hands. Typically, PayPal gives you 45 days to file a claim. eBay should give you about the same amount of time. When things like this happen, honestly, I would put the blame on your mailroom. I routinely send things to family who lives out of state and who has a mailroom that holds stuff, and they never inform them that they have packages there. They're constantly losing packages. So in a scenario like this, it's very possible that your mailroom lost it. Because you say it's a low dollar item, I'm assuming that a signature wasn't required. Typically, when I send things to apartment buildings, a lot of times, even if it is a low dollar item, I will require a signature. Yes, it does bother some buyers because now they have to go to the post office and pick up their item. But anybody who's been to an apartment building knows, you see packages on the floor in the common area. It's very easy for things to be stolen, damaged, lost, kicked around, etc. So a lot of times, as soon as I see an apartment number, it's automatically getting a signature. And I really don't care if it annoys a buyer because I'd rather them get their item than them not get their item and be mad at me, or now I'm out money and I have to resend an item. When situations like this happen, here's typically how it works, or here's how I handle it as a seller at least. So if a buyer claims an item hasn't been received and tracking shows delivered, I pretty much refuse to send out another item or refund the buyer. Reason being, both eBay and PayPal have a buyer protection program. That's why we as eBay sellers, pay eBay 6% and PayPal another 2.9%, because there are some protections that come with this. So in my experience, I haven't read the policy in a while, but in my experience, here's how it works out. So I'm basically going to tell their buyer, look, I did my part. I shipped the item. It shows delivered. I'll typically recommend that they check with anybody else who lives in their home. Are you sure your son didn't grab the package and maybe set it on the counter and forget to tell you about it? If you live in an apartment building, did you check with the front office or your neighbors to make sure that, they didn't get the package or it wasn't put in the wrong box or whatever else? And if they do all that stuff and they're still saying they didn't get it, if it's a very low dollar item, sometimes I'll just send a new one out just to kind of appease the buyer. But more likely than not, I'll tell them, look, open a case. I'm going to submit the tracking number showing it was delivered. I'm typically going to wind up winning the case. Actually, I shouldn't say typically. I don't think I've ever lost a case in that scenario. If the item is above $250, I require a signature. I think eBay and or PayPal may have recently raised that limit to $750, but nonetheless, I require a signature on anything above $250. Typically, when this winds up turning into an eBay case, I'll provide the tracking showing it was delivered, and I'll wind up winning the case. I believe this is where the buyer protection kicks in, and eBay will cover the loss on behalf of the buyer. Why? Because I did my part. I shipped the item in a prompt amount of time. If a signature was required, I required it. If not, at the very least, I got a tracking number, delivery confirmation showing that it was delivered. As long as I show that, eBay and PayPal are going to side with me. I'm going to win the case. eBay and or PayPal are going to come in to offer the buyer protection to cover that loss. So the buyer gets their money back. Me as a seller, I'm not out money because I did everything I'm supposed to do. And that's typically how these situations work out in my experience. So if you're a buyer on the end of the situation, most likely either eBay and or PayPal will cover your loss. And if you're a seller on this situation, you're not out the money. eBay or PayPal will typically cover the buyer's loss. As long as you do everything that you're required to do, as long as you only ship to the address on file that came through with the order, as long as you require a signature if it's above the threshold, etc. So hopefully that helps you out. If so, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Subscribe if you're not subscribed for more great eBay selling tips, and we'll talk to you guys in the next video.